Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Planning Commission meeting. Roll call, please.
Mayor McManus?
Here.
Banks? Here. Alderperson Hendler? Yes. Caprillion?
Here.
Anker? Here. Rosendich? Here. And Wood? Here.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the January 21st, 2020 meeting? Motion by Mr. Wood, second by Mrs. Banks. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, citizens' comments. Any comments from citizens? Seeing no one, we'll go to item number 5, rezoning request by Dean Schiller to rezone the property located at 909 West Adler, parcel 33-03307B from SR4 single-family residential to TR6 two-family residential. Presented Bryce Hembrook, City Planner.
Thank you, Mayor. So as the mayor mentioned, the applicant is requesting to rezone his property from SR4 single-family residential to TR6 two-family residential. This would allow the applicant to build a duplex on the property. According to the future land use map in the comprehensive plan, the subject property is located in the medium-density single-family residential district, and a duplex is appropriate in this district as long as it meets the recommended density requirement. The recommended density in the block area. The recommended density with the duplex would be 3 dwelling units per acre, and the recommended density for that medium density single family residential area is 3 to 10 dwelling units per acre. So that would be appropriate. To the west of the subject property, the properties are zoned SR4 and consists mainly of single-family residences. There are 3 duplexes to the west that are further down the block. To the north is the city-owned trail. To the east, there are properties that are zoned SR4 and TR6, and they consist of single-family homes and duplexes. And to the south, the properties are zoned SR2 and SR3, and those are mainly single-family homes as well. The subject property will meet all lot width, size, and setback requirements for the TR6 zoning district. And overall, rezoning the property to TR6 TR6 two-family residential would be consistent with our comprehensive plan, and we see no foreseeable adverse impacts that shall arise from rezoning the property. And thus, our recommendation is to approve the rezoning request by Dean Schiller to rezone his property from SR4, single-family residential, to TR6, two-family residential, and to direct staff to prepare an ordinance for Common Council consideration.
Thank you very much. This item does require a public hearing. At this time, I'll open up the floor to members of the public who wish to address the commission regarding this request. Anyone from the public wish to address the commission? Second call? Final call, anyone from the public wish to address the commission? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to approve. A motion by Mr. Wood, second by Mr. Rosendich. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6, the campus master plan by the Unified School District of Marshfield to adopt a 5-year campus master plan for the Marshfield Middle School that describes the existing conditions and future plan developments located at 900 and 1010 East 4th Street, 33-00186, and vacant parcel on East 8th Street, 33-00189. The properties listed are Zone CD Campus Development District, presented by Bryce Hembrook, City Planner.
Thank you, Mayor. So school district is requesting review and approval of their 5-year campus master plan. The plan includes an inventory of existing facilities and uses, and also shows future development and projects that may occur in the next 5 years. They created one for the Marshfield High School as well as Madison Elementary, and this is one of the recommendations in the comprehensive plan is to create campus master plans for some of the campuses around town. Overall, there are not really any major projects that are being proposed at this time. So up on the screen is the location of the middle school. And so there are 2 parcels that were rezoned to campus Development District. And so those two parcels would be included for this campus master plan. The campus master plan is broken up into three primary sections: an introduction, existing site analysis, and then a future uses analysis. The future uses analysis highlights possible projects in the next 5 years and also discusses proposed land uses and bulk density requirements such as setback requirements, height requirements, etc. So the plan identifies some minor projects that may take place over the next 5 years and may be administratively approved by city staff. So I'll quickly go over those. So some of the possible future projects are a track and field reconstruction on the existing track and field, shot put and discus reconstruction, regrading the interior of the track to better facilitate drainage and playability, replacement of the storage shed next to the existing concession stand, make improvements to the tennis pavilion, developing a safer parent pickup and drop-off drive loop, regrading the existing east practice field, remodeling existing study hall into a personalized learning space, and removal of the west grandstand for Beal Stadium. And so I'll go back. So up on the screen, one of the requirements in the zoning code is to identify a central district of the campus and a peripheral district. And so the central is basically where the buildings are. So you see the middle school, the large red structure in the middle. The district office is to the northeast of the school. And then you also see in red the grandstand to the southeast. The peripheral district is just grass essentially, and then there's some drive lanes. So there's no proposed development in that blue area there. So next I'll go on to parking. So the map shows the existing parking, and then the table in the top left corner shows how much parking they have. So currently there are 144 existing parking spaces that are located in the district, not including street parking. The school district has identified that in the need of a larger event, there's about 89 parking spaces that would be available in the grass that they would, happily be able to, let visitors use. Like I said, if there's a large track and field event or a football game or something. So most of the parking can be found in the north central part of the property in between the school and the district office. According to the zoning code, the school and district office require approximately 59 parking spaces. The outdoor athletic facilities are technically not required to have additional parking. The west grandstands will be removed unless sporting events that draw large crowds are expected to take place. And most of the parking issues that have been mentioned in the past have stemmed from the high school football team, having using Beal Stadium as their home field. So we anticipate that there will be less issues in the future. The school district will encourage visitors to use the parking lot, but they will also allow parking on the grass in designated locations for those larger events to try to reduce any parking issues. So it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but it is included in the packet. Here's the overall campus master plan. Kind of highlights what buildings are which, and then if there's any projects that are going to take place, it identifies where those projects will take place. And then in the campus master plan, there's a list of permitted uses that they can use in the future. And then there's also bulk density requirements. As I mentioned before, it covers the setbacks, the height requirements, stuff of that nature. So with that, the recommendation would be to approve the campus master plan by the Unified School District of Marshfield to adopt a campus master plan, a 5-year campus master plan that describes the existing conditions and future plan developments, and to direct staff to prepare an ordinance for common council consideration. Also, that minor changes to the plan may be made prior to the official adoption of the plan.
Thank you, Bryce. This item does require a public hearing. At this time, I'll open up the floor to members of the public who would like to address the commission regarding this request. Anyone from the public wish to address the commission? Second call. Final call. Anyone from the public wish to address the commission? Seeing that, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Mr. Rosendich, second by Mr. Wood. Discussion? Mr. Pinker.
I just have two questions. First, regarding parking. We know that last year there were neighborhood concerns, specifically around 8th Street, and I know there were some folks from the Weister Court area. And obviously, the senior high is not going to be playing football anymore. But was there any contact with the folks from that area, or did they come to you and make any expressions?
If you could just go up to the podium. No.
To directly answer your question, did anybody come to us about parking or any concerns? No. But I just want to, back in May, we did hold an open forum that we put out on our website and in the newspaper, addressing these issues that if anybody had concerns about. So we held it at the middle school from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock on, again, May 15th last year to address any concerns at that time, and we had none. So we did look to speak to anybody that may have any issues with what we're doing.
Okay, and the second question, this was posed to me by somebody from Marshfield who goes to Wausau for the woodchuck games. Now, up there at Athletic Field, they had to modify part of the original wall, outfield wall. And the question posed to me was, is the grandstand really historic? And if that is, part of that is removed, is the history of the facility being disturbed? That was posed to me by a Marshfield resident.
Okay. Well, prior to beginning of all of this, we did contact the State of Wisconsin Historical Society. We gave them all the information they needed in their statement to us. I think I did share it with you guys, sent it to the price is that it was just the focus was on the building, what they're looking at, and not any athletic areas at all.
Anything further from the commission? While you're there, I just have one thing on the parking. I was really happy with the fact that you all have the auxiliary grass parking there, because if you look at the amount of stalls there, it wouldn't have anything for when you have events. And when you have multi-school events, there's going to be a lot more there. And so I'm wondering, with that auxiliary grass parking, will there be signage or something around saying don't park here, park over there?
Yeah, we established that in our last season of the varsity game when the skating ring was closed. So we provided signs so people understood where to go. In fact, we took some of our district vehicles and we parked them there. And once people see that, they start following. So we kind of set that up. We did that at the new stadium also.
Thank you very much. Anything further from the commission? Seeing nothing further, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, Municipal Code Amendment by the City of Marshfield to amend Chapter 18, General Zoning Ordinance, Section 18-25 through Section 18-41, Section 1854, Section 1858, and Section 1865. This request will remove the tourist house land used from the zoning district, the commercial land use section, and the table of land uses. This request will add and define short-term rental to the accessory land use section, Section 1865. Add this use as an accessory land use permitted by right in each zoning district, and add the land use to the table of land uses, Section 1854. The municipal code will also be amended to establish a licensing procedure for short-term rentals. Presenter Bryce Embrick, City Planner.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to give a brief background, state law has recently changed in how a municipality can regulate a short-term rental. And our regulations will need to be amended to, at a very minimum, meet those standards. Our zoning code currently considers this land use as a tourist house, and that is a relatively restrictive land use. We only right now allow short-term rentals in our mixed-use districts by permitted by conditional use. And then, so staff has discussed potential regulations and procedures with Plan Commission and Common Council. And after those comments were given to us, we reviewed them, and we also looked at how other municipalities regulate short-term rentals and what they do. And so we have decided to, that probably the best way to go about it is to create a licensing program for short-term rentals. And this would also be a way to collect room taxes as well. So just to be clear, what we'll be discussing, or what we'll be voting on is for the changes in the zoning code. So I mentioned these sections that we'll be amending will just be the changes that we're making to the zoning code. We do plan on amending Chapter 9, the licensing chapter. That's where we plan to set our regulations and the procedure for the license. Tonight it's just going to be deleting the old land use, adding the new land use, defining the new land use, and then adding the new land use to all zoning districts or all residential zoning districts. So we won't be talking about exactly which regulations we won't be deciding on which regulations we'll add to the program. So I will just quickly go over the state law changes. So we've talked about this before at previous meetings, whether Plan Commission or Common Council. We're able to regulate but not prohibit short-term rentals. The municipality is unable to ban the rental of a residential dwelling for a period of time of 7 consecutive days or longer. We can ban nightly rentals or rentals of less than 7 consecutive days. We can place reasonable regulations on the use and can require local permits or licenses to be obtained. We can limit the number of days that a dwelling unit can offer their unit as a short-term rental to 180 days or more. And also it establishes that municipalities can collect local room taxes, and anyone who manages or operates a short-term rental for more than 10 nights each year is now required to obtain a tourist rooming host license from the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. So the city's current regulations do not allow the majority of residential property owners to operate a short-term rental. After reviewing the options, we decided that a licensing program is just easier for us to kind of track where these short-term rentals are, collect the room tax, and then it's not as long as a process as if it were to be a conditional use, which would go through Plan Commission and Common Council. And then that's also added staff time as well. If the Plan Commission wishes to regulate short-term rentals exclusively through the zoning code and not through a licensing program, we can go that route. However, we are recommending to go the route of license. So I'll just kind of quickly go over what we have planned for the potential regulations for licensing. This is what we would propose to Common Council for the amendment to Chapter 9. So some of the things that we were thinking of requiring was that number one, no person shall maintain, manage, or operate a short-term rental without a short-term rental license, and that each year they should be renewed. The short-term rental can be operated either by the owner or someone that is designated by the owner. A minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces are required. Any nameplates or signage shall follow the sign code, which is Chapter 24. The number of occupants in any unit shall not exceed the limits set forth in the Wisconsin UDC, which is the Uniform Dwelling Code. No recreational vehicles, campers, tents, or other similar temporary lodging arrangements shall be used as a means of providing additional accommodations for paying customers. And as I mentioned before, short-term rental licenses are issued for a one-year period, and they must be renewed annually, subject to city approval or denial. We're planning on doing that each calendar year. At the start of each calendar year, we'll do renewal of licensing. So yeah, I'll quickly go over the changes. So as I mentioned, we would delete the tourist house land use from the commercial land use section, as well as remove the mention of the land use in any of our mixed use zoning district sections. We would then add short-term rental as an accessory land use. We would define the short-term rental land use, and this is the state definition of the land use. So it'd be a residential dwelling that is offered for rent and for a fee and for fewer than 29 consecutive days as defined in Wisconsin State Statute 66.06151 DK. One thing to note is I think that they are actually going to try to amend that to say fewer than 30 days. So we'll just keep our eye out and make that change if they do make that. We would then add short-term rental land use to each zoning district as an accessory land use permitted by right, except for the planned development and campus development districts. This is because they set their own land uses, but staff would recommend to add those to their plan. And then the last change would be to update the table of land uses according to the new changes. So I kind of went through a lot, but with that, we would recommend to approve the Municipal Code Amendment request to amend Chapter 18, Sections 1825 through Section 1841, Section 1854, Section 1858, and Section 1865, and to direct staff to prepare an ordinance for Common Council consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryce. So this item does require a public hearing. At this time, I'll open up the floor to members of the public who wish to address the commission regarding this request. Anyone from the public wish to address the Planning Commission? Please, when you go to the podium, state your name and address.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Melanie Carter. My husband and I live in Chile, and we own and operate several multifamily residential units here in Marshfield. 2 years ago, I approached Bryce and the department to see if we could do short-term rentals, and we were in an SR6 zone. So we understood from reading the zoning and talking to Bryce that it wasn't allowed at that time from a housing perspective. So during that time, we have complied with the zoning. We do have some furnished units. We've posted them on Airbnb for 30 nights or more. So we do service a lot of the traveling medical professionals that come to the city, and that has been a good asset to our business. However, during that time, we've also lost a lot of business because we've seen every time I go to the sites, I see more and more short-term rentals who are not in compliance with the zoning, who are continuing to market and doing a great business for themselves. However, it doesn't seem like the city has done any oversight as far as pulling back and enforcing the existing code that is out there. So while I am in favor of modifying the code and making sure that short-term rentals can be an asset to the city, as well as to us business owners, what concerns me is continuing to operate our own business in an environment that the code is only going to be enforced to those who voluntarily comply with it. So for example, if you were to change the code, my husband and I would go get a license through the state of Wisconsin. We'd start collecting and remitting the taxes as we're supposed to. But what about all the other people who are out there today who are not complying with the current code, who therefore we could maybe assume are not going to go to the effort to have a licensing specialist come out to their property to make sure they have all the safety features, all the locks, all the fire alarms. They're not going to pay the annual fee of $110 to the state to get their license. So what I'm concerned about is if the city is only going to enforce this code on those of us who opt into the license, and therefore you have a list of licensees, and you can say, did the licensees remit their taxes? But what about all the other people who haven't done that effort? Are they going to have oversight? Who's going to make sure that they're complying with the code? And I can tell from the site and from the location, you can get a feel for what type of zone that property is in. So I would like to hear about what type of enforcement is being planned beyond just, this is the list of people who have already said, hey, I want to comply. I'll get a license and you can hold me accountable for submitting my taxes. Because right now I'm competing on an unequal scale because I'm complying with the code when others aren't. So I'd like to make sure that if you're going to put something in the code, that it's going to be enforced on an equitable basis for all those of us landlords in the city.
You want to respond to that?
Yeah. Yeah, and we did notice that, your rentals were following the regulations, so we did respect that. Currently, the issue is that when you search where these properties are on Airbnb, typically it gives you a general vicinity of where the rental is. So it doesn't necessarily show us exactly where a house is, unless they show like an exterior picture of the house. And so that's where it's been less of we haven't been, driving around and trying to find where it's been hard to kind of pinpoint exactly who's running those operations. Now, we typically kind of rely on a complaint basis. If someone called and said, hey, the person at this location is running that, then we would look into it. And then if they're not complying, then we would, take care of that. Now, how we go about doing, in the future, I guess the best way is to just try to communicate with our communication director to really get the word out that, hey, if you're not complying and you don't have a license, and we know exactly where your location is, then you do risk citations or orders. And then those that are complying would be able to then, obviously continue their operation. And the other thing is we have also received some word from the county on if anyone applies for this license through the county. So they usually talk to us. They only have, I think it's 1 or 2 on record. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing too, is we would make sure that we communicate with the county to say, hey, this person took out a license through the city or vice versa. And so it's kind of hard to tell that everyone will follow, but we're definitely going to try to track it as best as we can. Because that's the hard part, is without really knowing exactly where the locations are, it's hard to really pinpoint who's doing it, and to get them to come in and talk with us. So I guess the main answer here is just trying to get communication out there and inform people that this is a requirement. I don't think necessarily everyone knows that it's a requirement.
Well, it is a responsibility to know.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the complexity in trying to learn who's operating the businesses that are working outside the code, but have you thought about maybe approaching those people through the Airbnb and messaging them and saying, hey, listen, we're from the city, not to come down hard on you, but can you come talk to us?
Yeah, and so we have thought about that. I'm not sure of the best way to go about that. We were going to maybe contact someone from Airbnb or VRBO to see if they would be able to provide us some information. I'm not sure if they would be willing to. If not, we'd have to, you'd have to create an account just to talk to most property owners. So there might be issues with that, but we can certainly look into that.
Sure.
Can we contact other municipalities to see what they do?
And that's another thing too. We can see if any other municipalities have been able to successfully track where those are. Like I said, if there's exterior pictures of the exterior of the home, then we can. But the other thing too is it gives you a pretty, I don't know exactly the range, but it could spend, staff could spend a good amount of time just tracking down the house. And so it's something we haven't actively done, but if we get a complaint, we look into it. So
I wonder what benefit it's going to be to do such a radical change to the code if the only people that are going to get regulated are those of us that are technically already
Right.
making an effort to comply. I don't know how much revenue the city's going to see from the taxes if most of the people are going to be running it off book.
Right.
So just something to think about.
Yep. Yeah. And thank you for the comments. And that's obviously one of the things that we're hoping to, at a very minimum, improve our tracking system of where they are. Because right now we only know of, a handful. So it's
I've
kind of
probably
hard
got
to track.
15 bookmarked in my
Yeah.
Airbnb, so.
Yeah. So, but yeah, those comments definitely help, and we'll definitely try to figure out the best way to track it. And by contacting other municipalities is definitely a good start. I know a lot of them are also complaint driven as well, but hopefully someone has a solution.
Your argument is a great argument. I mean, I totally get what you're saying. And on another, if you look at it from another thing that we go through, it's similar to where people go out and do home improvements. Everyone knows they're supposed to get a permit.
Mhm.
How do you regulate the people that don't get a permit? Well, I'm wondering here, Bryce, if you, as you look to other municipalities, could there be part of this that would be a failure to comply? For instance, I think if somebody if we go out there and they do something, then it's double the permit,
Yeah,
I mean, you got to have, people have to go by the law, but your argument is an excellent argument.
right, because if I have to charge, right now, I don't have to collect taxes because I rent for 30 days or more at a time. But if I start doing the short term, which I'd like to do, because I had a vacancy for 6 weeks in, the end of the year when there weren't as many contractors coming into the area, would have been great to, cover my expenses. But if I'm charging, $12, $15 of tax per night and someone else isn't, obviously, visitors to the town are going to book with who isn't collecting those taxes. That hurts my business, but it hurts the city too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's in all of our best interest to make sure the code is going to be enforceable to the extent possible, equally across the city.
Thank you, Mr. Henley.
Let me turn this on first. I had a similar situation in my district where I knew that was they were renting on a sporadic basis their house. It's quite evident, the traffic, the cars, etc. And I got a hold of the department, and they sent a letter out to this party to either be licensed or be subjected to other fines. And it stopped. So I don't want to call, when I ask you to be a snitch, so to speak, who is doing it. But sometimes those are the way things work, is by communicating. And I did communicate with the department, and they did send a letter, cease and desist with that operation, and it worked.
Okay.
So I think when our department finds out about it, they do take action. But the thing you have to understand, they're a small department too. And I think there are a lot of things going on in the city that we don't know about. But I think you have some excellent points in what you're saying. So if you want to be a snitch, tell those people.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public wish to address the commission? Please state your name and address just for the record.
My name is Faith Arndt. I live at 208 North Walnut Avenue. My house faces the back of the band shell, Columbia Park. We in the past have had numerous issues with our neighbor, who is now deceased, Richard Hosack, and the way that house was maintained. They came in, now that he is no longer living, the house was redone, updated, and put up for sale this summer. A couple bought the house. Within a couple of weeks of buying it, they put up a for rent sign. Fine, their house to do with what they want. But about 6 weeks ago, we noticed a lot of, we also share a driveway, both our houses do. We noticed a lot of traffic, cars coming and going all hours of the night. We have dogs and They're very well trained. However, when they hear car doors slamming in the middle of the night, they bark. And like I said, we noticed it going on and we just thought, well, and all the vehicles in the driveway had Michigan plates. And then the next week it was more Minnesota plates. And so we were trying to figure out what is going on over there. And so we entered Marshfield, Wisconsin, B&B. And sure enough, they are renting this by the night for $99, allowing 8 people in this residence. When we purchased our home over 25 years ago, if we wanted to live next to a hotel, we would have bought a house next to a hotel. This is a residential district. We bought our house because it's across from the park. It's quiet. It's a quiet neighborhood. There's a lot of young children in our neighborhood. And now we have these people coming and going constantly. And I talked to the city on Monday. I gave them the copy of their B&B. Ethan or Evan is the person I gave it to.
Correct.
He told me he would pass it on, but he also informed me that there was most likely nothing I could do about it. And I have a real problem with that. I bought a house in this town in a residential district. And now you're just telling me that that can be rezoned, rechanged, and I have no say in that. I do have a problem with it. So that's, I guess, what I'm here to voice is my opinion. And that's, I guess, where I'm at. Looking to see which way it's going to go. I mean, I understand the income it can bring into our city, the need for it with traveling nurses, but I feel it needs to be regulated somehow. I mean, you shouldn't just be able to purchase a property and just start running a hotel out of it. So that's all I'd like to say. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else from the public who wish to address the commission? Final call, anyone from the public wish to address the commission? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing, entertain a motion to approve. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Mr. Caprillion, is there a second? Second by Mr. Wood. Discussion. Mr. Caprillion.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. Melanie. Melanie hit on a lot of the points I wanted to talk about. The biggest thing I think, and Bryce, you talked about this, is the communication to the public about the responsibility to let the city know and get licensed and all of that. I don't necessarily blame the public that might be interested in doing this for not knowing they have to, because I mean, Airbnb and VRBO, they make it sound really easy, right? Oh yeah, you got some extra capacity of your house, put it up for rent. It's super easy. We make it simple for you. But I think the city has to do a really good job of getting out there and saying, hey, you have to get licensed. You have to do sales taxes. You have to do all these things, or we're going to shut you down. So I don't think you can really aggressively go out there and try to track them down. But to Mr. Hendler's point, we got to kind of rely on the citizenry to blow the whistle on the homeowners that are doing that.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, then all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay?
Nay.
Motion failed. Number 8, items for future agendas. Any items for future agendas? Number 9, staff updates. Any staff updates? Josh?
I don't have any.
None? Bryce?
No.
All right, no staff updates. Seeing that's the end. Is there a motion to adjourn? A motion by Mr. Rosendich, second by Mr. Becker. We are adjourned.